Hey, there's no shame in trying things that people ain't never tried before.
So what makes a good DLC? What makes a good expansion? Far Harbor is far and away considered the best Fallout 4 expansion, adding a new location, new factions, and a new story. It's all masterfully crafted, from the setting to the story to the feelings they all evoke. You'll be hard-pressed to find critics of Far Harbor. But does that make Far Harbor perfect? A lack of criticism does not make something flawless. Fallout 4 has 3 pieces of DLC, each representing a different DLC design philosophy. Automatron represents toys and mechanics. Far Harbor represents story, lore, and immersion. Nuka World represents a mixture of the two, but considering Far Harbor is, like I mentioned, the most popular, we'll start there. So what does Far Harbor offer? Well, a big new map, an introspective, complicated story, some neato unique items, and a really interesting, mysterious tone. There is some side content and there are some new features, but for the most part it focuses on story, world building, and that mysterious, wonderful tone. The story asks questions about innocence, ignorance, religion, society, how you fit in, existence as a whole. It's a really wonderfully written story. It's very reminiscent of Hearts of Stone in what the story tries to accomplish, and Blood and Wine in what the world offers you. The former asking fundamental questions about life and society, and the latter giving you a wonderfully imagined, spectacularly realized world in which to explore them. And if I was rating it, I would give it a strong 8 or a light 9. It is very good, but it suffers from the same problem vanilla Fallout 4 does, and every story-based game does, really. And that is getting boring, getting old. If a game only has its story and scripted side quests to rely on, it can only survive for so long. Because we already know what happens. After maybe a month of play, we've exhausted every ounce of fun we can out of the game's story. BioShock Infinite was wildly popular, but you don't hear people bringing it up anymore, because it was a closed circuit. You finished it, you discussed it, and that was it. There wasn't really anything else. There was no reason to go back. There was nothing else to discuss. There was nothing else to play. And that is where Far Harbor falls flat. For all its hype, for all its success, for all its wonderful everything, it gets old. Unfortunately, it gets old. Like that child you're keeping in your basement, after a while the new car smell wears off, the excitement fades, it falls into a slump until you leave it alone to just die, occasionally revisiting it for nostalgia's sake. And that doesn't mean you hate it, and that doesn't mean you wish it didn't exist. It just doesn't last. But how does Automatron stack up to Far Harbor? The smallest of the major DLCs, but certainly my favorite by far. Well, if Fallout 4 is a pond and Far Harbor is another pond, Automatron aims to make Fallout 4 a lake. It doesn't really go anywhere new, but it adds a lot of depth to what we already have. And when I do play Fallout 4, it's not Far Harbor that brings me back, it's Automatron in the settlement system. Because their potential isn't limited by the developer's creativity, it's limited by my own. Which is very cool because it's hard to exhaust your own imagination. When I was a little kid, I was faced with a choice. I could watch a movie, which would entertain me for 2 hours, or I could buy a toy, which would entertain me for months, perhaps even years. And again, that's what Automatron is. That's what games like Warframe are. They are toys. They don't exactly change what you're doing, they change how you do it, which can completely change your experience and perception of the game as a whole. I recently downloaded the Holidays and Sacrosanct Vampires mods for Skyrim. They didn't give me a whole new world to explore or some big fancy philosophical story, but they did change the way I perceived the world I inhabited. They got me paying attention to dates and times. If I wanted to do something in vanilla Skyrim or with any of its DLCs installed, I just went and did it. But with Holidays and Sacrosanct, I had to plan, I had to schedule my events. I'll use a Bandit Camp bounty as an example. After I collected the bounty, I walked outside and got ready to go, but realized it was 3 a.m. in the morning. I only had 2 more hours of nighttime left. And playing as a vampire, I can't be out during the day or I'm screwed. So I said scratch it, whatever, I'll do it tomorrow night. But then I checked my calendar and realized tomorrow night would be the 3rd of Heartfire. Or for those who don't know, Tales and Talos, a holiday reminiscent of Halloween. But unlike Halloween, instead of fun costumes and candy, undead legions and demons wandering the night, killing everybody in hordes, hundreds. Going out at night would just be stupid, pointless, deadly. So we didn't. Inigo, Sophia, and I basically just hung out for 2 days, bumming food from the party. And that was super cool, because I wasn't exploring some new world and some new story, but I was interacting with the one I was familiar with in a completely different way, changing my perspective entirely. And that's sort of what Automatron does. Maybe not in the same way, and certainly not to the same extent, but it does certainly change the way you interact with Fallout 4's universe. You now have a new resource and a new enemy to bolster your settlements with and defend them from. You now have a randomly generated set of enemies ready to rip your asshole apart with a crazy variety of weapons. And if you don't have the necessary perks to build the parts from scratch, suddenly the game becomes like Pokemon, or actually Metabots, keeping your eyes open for certain configuration of bot so you can get better parts. And that incentivizes bot hunting, which is one of the Radiant quests you get from the expansion. So it doesn't just give you a new system and a new set of Radiant quests, it gives you a reason to want to do them, to improve yourself and improve your settlements. It all works together mechanically and organically, enhancing Fallout 4's gameplay loop by creating a smaller one of its own. It helps reinvigorate the 600-hour mark. It makes it feel fresh, because there still may be more. Or even if you have seen all the pieces, they may fit together in a different, new, exciting way. And it all works together very well. Automatron is my favorite Fallout 4 DLC, and it's my favorite kind of DLC in general, usually. But that is a big hanging usually, like a uvula and a big mouth, or something. So let me explain. I love Automatron and DLC like it because they make the Infinity exciting, but what they don't do is give you a reason to participate in the gameplay loop. They don't give you something overall to care about. You can collect robot parts and build settlements all day long. If you're in Minecraft, you can mine ore, make farms, breed pigs like you live in Alabama. But there is this big, scary question looming over your head the entire time. Why? Why am I doing this? Why am I, for all intents and purposes, wasting my time on this gameplay loop that will get me nowhere, that I will learn nothing from? Just for fun? Maybe. If you view games as toys and toys alone, then all you need them to be are toys. All you need is a toy box. But for others, for most of us here, we view games not as toys, but as art. Or we view games as communities, or tests of skill, or jobs for some people. And we want all of our work to mean something. We want to work towards a goal, or to fight an enemy, or to reach a conclusion, to understand a message. Because if all we can say after playing is 3 hours of my life are gone, that is disheartening. And if you amplify it, it is scary. Turn that into 1,500 hours of my life are gone on nothing. That is horror. That is dread. That is terror. I can't play games to just enjoy them anymore. Unless I'm recording them, or unless I'm taking notes to make a point later, I get anxiety. I get anxious. I get scared playing games. Because without a reason, you're just looking into a void. And eventually that void is going to look back.
Key phrase here is, you can, but why would you want to? You can get married, bone your spouse till their eyes drop out, pump out enough kids to start your own jazz orchestra, but it's all for its own sake. You can buy every house in the game and be crowned king, but there's no benefit besides more and more useless fucking money to make your wallet look untidy.
Without something to work towards, without a reason, it's all for naught. And that's why a solid foundation, a solid main quest, and DLC like Far Harbor are so important. You're not just building an army of robots and organizing settlements and constructing intricately crafted cities for no reason. You're doing it to stop these monsters from destroying, or these people you disagree with from fucking up, your world. It's escapism, but it's very grounded, sensible escapism. You're participating, learning, and accomplishing while also having fun. That's what makes gaming special as entertainment, as art. And that's also what makes DLC like Automatron worthless on its own. And what makes free-to-play games like Warframe horrifying on an existential level, because their goal isn't to justify your story with toys and justify your toys with a story. Their answer to meaninglessness is just more toys. Their goal is more money. Forever, until you die, and after. They don't want you to grow, they don't want you to learn, they don't want you to think. They want you to consume. They want to leech you dry like fucking vampires. Taking advantage of dopamine, the human satisfaction of overcoming, to keep you invested and keep you investing, either your time or your money, both valuable. And I like capitalism, because stuff like this doesn't need to exist. By demanding value for value and not throwing value at it, we can make this stop. But the fact that we don't, and the fact that it exists, and the fact that For Honor was built like a mobile game to extend its lifetime is scary. Dreadful. Really, really dreadful. But your boy's getting off topic, baby. Let's get on to Nuka World, huh? If I had to describe Nuka World in one word, it would be disappointment. It would be disappointment. But not in a bad way, not in a bad way. Off to a bad start. I mean disappointment in the same way I was, quote-unquote, disappointed in Lost Planet 2 and 3. Two games I really enjoyed if you watch my older videos. But unlike the Lost Planet sequels, this was a Camp A DLC, a Camp A experiment that did not turn out so hot. Though I'm glad it exists and I admire what they were trying to do. They tried to give you toys, give you a story that would give you a reason for having the toys, justify using the toys, and then integrate the toys and the story with the vanilla game. All very bold, a very grand idea, and it's unfortunate it didn't work out so well. But why didn't it work out so well? Well, there are a few reasons, and I don't think that Nuka World is entirely at fault, or that the concept itself is awful. I'm actually putting the blame squarely on the developers because Nuka World is exactly what Fallout 4 is. Both Fallout 4 and Nuka World give you a wannabe complicated story, and tools and systems to help you reach the end and keep you entertained afterwards. But both, unfortunately, miss the mark. Vanilla Fallout 4 plays like Obsidian's retarded younger brother watched Blade Runner once. And Nuka World feels like a toy box, just literally a toy box. A messy one. Both have grand visions and big goals, but neither are realized. Neither have the story impact of Far Harbor, or the smooth, fun integration of Automatron. And the way the Raiders function as a main faction for the vanilla game is just awful and late. It felt like all of the faction leaders were just having a grand old time in the Commonwealth, and then the Raiders show up 30 hours too late, smelling like ass, drunk, and start grinding on Preston going, "Oh, you lack settlements? Well, boy, I got some stuff that's gonna make you dumb." They come too late to be used as an evil alternative faction in the main story, making them broken from a gameplay and a role-playing perspective. And once you have them, their outpost system is so unpolished, so uncoordinated with the other DLCs and even the base game, that they're almost unusable. Well, considering their toys don't work, you'd hope at least the story would hold up well. Without its Automatron-esque gameplay-enhancing toys and systems, all you're left with is a messy, focusless, overly convenient story competing with the behemoth of a narrative that is Far Harbor. So you put it up against Automatron, throw toys against toys, and it still loses because it's uncoordinated and inaccessible. And if you put it up against Far Harbor in a pissing contest, Far Harbor wins because its narrative, its world, is much better written, much more thought-provoking, and far better realized. So what do you have left? You have a really, really nice concept handled very, very poorly. which is a poignant reflection of the game it's supposed to be expanding. So in summary, toys and tools expand a game's life in a fun and exciting way, but without a good story, without a purpose, without a goal, without a message, without an enemy, without something to work towards, none of it matters. It's up to the developers to give us that story, to give us that context, to give us a reason for fucking around in their game. What are we fucking around towards? Then they expand the core gameplay loop with toys and systems and conditions and all that other wonderfully fun stuff. Or they let modders do it for them. Skyrim is still fun and active because of its modding community. And can you get story and toys at the same time without it being a complete disaster? Yes you can. It's just unfortunate Bethesda couldn't pull it off with vanilla Fallout 4 or its Nuka World DLC, but that doesn't mean it's impossible. You know, it kinda makes me wish 0.5 games existed, like the same game, just better in every way. But that's crazy, that's too far-flung, that's never gonna happen, that stuff like that doesn't exist. But yeah, that'll about wrap it up, everybody. Thank you for watching. I enjoyed making it, and I hope you enjoyed watching it. If you did enjoy, hit that like button, because that helps me out a lot. If you really enjoyed and you haven't yet, subscribe, because we do this shit weekly, and I'm thinking about upping it up a little bit. And please, if you have any suggestions or thoughts, please leave a comment, tell me down below, because this dude left this awesome comment on my games mechanics as characters video. It just blew my mind, so I love hearing from you guys, because you're smart, and I like hearing what you have to say. So yeah, we have a lot of fun on this channel, and I look forward to having you on this meme train of ours. Man, that was the gayest thing I think I've